All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. We have the tan and rested and ready Bob Rose here. How you doing tonight, Bob?
I'm pretty good, Alan, and I'm one of those three things. I'm Tanner. Wouldn't call myself rested and ready to go. I suppose is a matter of perspective, but I'll give you what I got.
There you go. There you go. Are you at home? Or are you still in Virginia Beach?
No, I'm at home. I just needed my body is still all kind of beat up, from the 11-hour drive home that should have only been 7.
Oh
Thanks to
gosh.
128 miles of construction through Virginia. Uh, so I need a comfortable place to sit for tonight's hour presentation.
I gotcha. Well, yeah, I was going to say, did you have to drive through Baton Rouge on your way to back home? Because that's what Baton Rouge does to you. It's
Ugh.
either that or when you take, when you come from Gulf Shores or Florida or anywhere like that, and you have to go through the Mobile Tunnel. That's the other
Mm.
one. It's a big bottleneck. So, been there, done that too many times. Uh, so, Bob, training camp, the first week is in the books. They did not actually have practice today. Kellen Moore surprised them all by taking them on a bowling outing.
Nice.
Yeah, so they were supposed to have a padded practice today. It was not padded. They were off on Saturday. They've only had one padded practice so far, and that was Monday. Uh, um, how do you feel about training camp so far?
Yeah, from the coaching perspective, I like what Kellen is doing. There seems to be very little standing around. Like when the ones are going against the ones. A lot of times, twos are going against the twos also on a different part of the field. Not every time, but that's happened a number of times. I like the activity that the coaches are promoting at practice. Now as far as the good, the bad, and the ugly, we haven't seen a lot of ugly so far. To borrow your terminology from your work during the regular seasons, we haven't seen a lot of ugly so far. And I know we'll talk about our opinions of the good and the bad specifically in a minute. But I will say this: no matter what you think is good, no matter what you think is bad, it is still only 1 week in. And like you said, only one padded practice out of that. So I know we're going to talk about the quarterbacks, Kendre Miller. I have a couple opinions on the wide receivers, as well as the edge rushers and cornerbacks. But folks, temper your expectations, good or bad. Because and Alan and I were talking about this just before we went on the air. A lot of this is just two-hand touch football right now. So I'm not going to feel one extreme or the other about the tackles versus the edge rushers or the offensive lineman versus the interior defensive line, because it's just patty cake stuff right now. I'm looking for obviously health. And JT Gray went down the other day with what they're terming as a lower body injury. No more specifications on what that is or how long he's going to be out. But obviously you don't want to see any injuries through camp. And the other thing is the players do seem to have a lot of enthusiasm right now. The change of voice in that locker room. From Dennis Allen and that staff to Kellen Moore and a pretty much completely new staff. I feel like it's going to be invigorating, at least early on into the season.
Well, one of the interesting things that they've talked about is how they're doing much more recovery,
Yes.
a lot of stretching after practice and so forth. And Erik McCoy said this is the best he's felt in training camp and probably since his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is playing a role with the fewer injuries. Now, granted, they're not having very much contact, but you're not seeing the soft tissue injury issues that we have seen in previous training camps. Look at Kendre Miller with the hamstring issue last year. So, I mean, and the players are all raving about the coaching staff, the energy in the locker room, just the vibe of the field, of being out there. So they haven't played a game yet. They haven't had any adversities yet. So, I mean, they're saying all the right things.
Yeah.
One of my concerns and we talked about this on the Bayou Blitz last week, but one of my concerns when Tyrann Mathieu suddenly retired on the day they got to camp, and they did sign Justin Blackham, but who was going to be the new leaders in that locker room? And It seems like there are some leaders kind of stepping up and making their voices heard now. So, the practices I've seen so far and the clips I've seen, it's nothing for me to get excited about because it's guys running in shorts and shells. The first one that really I enjoyed seeing was Banks pancaking some pass rusher. I don't know who it was, but he put him in the ground. And that was a very positive thing. When they had the pads on, Penning did some good things out there. I started to see that offensive line, how this line is going to look. And they're not moving people all over the place. If you notice that, this is the lineup they're going with. Banks on one tackle, Fuaga on the other, Ruiz and Penning at guard, and McCoy in the center. We're not going to go and play and start saying, okay, we're going to try you over here and try you over there. No, this is what they decided to do, and they've been doing this since OTAs. To me, that's exciting because they've kind of made their decision with this, and they want this team to gel, or this line to gel. That's a good thing.
100%. And we talked about it right after the draft, right after they picked Kelvin Banks. It was speculating where everybody could go. And you, me, Brendan all agreed that, the sooner that they can set a lineup, the lineup that they want, the better it's going to be for the team, because at no more position in football, maybe in all of sports, is cohesion important than on the offensive line. So I'm with you. They made their decision. It feels like probably from the moment Banks was name was announced, hey, he's going to be our left tackle. We want Fuaga to play his collegiate position at right tackle. We want Penning to work at guard, and obviously Ruiz and McCoy aren't going anywhere. So the more reps those guys get together, as you said, even if it is 7-on-7 drills and just positional drills, the better it's going to be for that unit and for that offense as a whole.
Yeah, and that's been a very positive thing about this camp. Wide receiver. Rashid Shaheed apparently is having a very good camp. He is not showing any effects whatsoever from the injury last year. Chris Olave, I mean, it's unbelievable we got to talk like this, but Chris Olave survived the first padded practice without getting injured.
Right.
And he's not wearing a no contact jersey. So that's a good thing. But, there's still some receivers out there hanging out there unsigned. The Titans released a former first round pick, Trayvon Burks, who has a broken collarbone, by the way.
Yes.
But they released him today. How do you feel about this receiving core? Brandon Cooks is quietly being a leader and working with the receivers. So he at least is showing a reason they brought him here. But after Brandon Cooks, it seems like there's a huge drop off. Even your boy from Pitt, he's not even stepping up. I mean, you're just not seeing much of anything out of the second and third teams. So how do you feel about this receiving group?
I'm a little bit concerned. And, I've been talking up Bub Means, as you pointed out, really since the middle of last year. And I expected him to be, one of my breakout candidates on the offensive side. And he did have good OTA and mini camp sessions, but like you said, he's not doing anything so far. The big wideout that they signed, the physically big, Donovan Peoples-Jones, is he even at camp? I've not heard his name at all. And I'm hearing the people that are looking for camp darlings every single year are falling in love with Mason Tipton all over again. Folks, he broke your heart once. Probably going to do so again. I like Mason. I'm rooting for him. And I still stand by what I said about what Bub Means could bring to the receiving corps. But I'm a little bit concerned that neither of them have done it yet. Now, again, it's only one weekend. They haven't even played a preseason game. Yeah. So I'll withhold my complete judgment. But I wouldn't be against the Saints taking a look or taking a flyer on someone. Yes, I know Keenan Allen is still out there. I believe he's still unsigned. Tyler Boyd. You mentioned Treylon Burks. A younger guy, far younger than either Boyd or especially the 87-year-old Keenan Allen. But my problem with Burke, and someone put this on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and it's that time of year whenever someone gets released or looks like they're going to get released. Hey, should the Saints take a flyer on him? Yeah. My answer to Burke was, unless he's agreeable to a vet minimum, then hell no. And it has nothing to do with the injury. He's been unable to get separation, and they've given him the Titans gave him 3 years of opportunity to take over that number one spot for that offense. I mean, hell, they traded AJ Brown to clear the path for Burke, and he hasn't done it. Okay, if you're not able to get separation, maybe you're like a Michael Thomas, and you're just a contested catch beast. Well, he hasn't been that either. So, no, I wouldn't even look Treylon Burks' way, unless, like I said, he's willing. If he's agreeable to a 1-year vet minimum, then okay, you bring him in, you let him compete. Maybe he makes the other guys better, or maybe that light switch turns on for him. But I mean, I am a little bit concerned about the receiving corps past Olave and Shaheed. We know what they can do, and people, I'm going to be pounding the table for this now. Get Rashid Shaheed re-signed now. Extend him now. Other people have thrown that out there on social media, and then the idiots would counter with, "Oh, well, he's injured all the time." Bullshit. Open your eyes. He's been injured once. Right. Once. And that's a knee injury. That happens to literally anyone. I'm not concerned about Rashid Shaheed at all. And his abilities to make plays in this offense. In fact, I'm hoping for a more expanded role, wide receiver screens, quick throws, jet sweeps, something that the Dennis Allen and that staff should have done with an all-pro punt returner before. So hopefully Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier recognize that, and expand Shaheed's role at least to that extent.
Well, and then we've seen Juwan Johnson targeted in training camp so far, which clearly means they're looking at tight end too, to kind of pick up the slack as being like that fourth receiver. And Noah Fant's out there on the Jerry McGuire Tour. He wants somebody to show him the money, and he has gone to Cincinnati. He's seen the Saints, and now I think he's in Miami. Noah Fant, what would you give him the suck tax, as some people call it? We're a sucky team, so we're going to pay a little bit more for you because we're trying to get you here, because he's clearly not going to a contender. He is he is battling the also ran teams. I know he went to Cincinnati also, but Cincinnati just signed their first round pick. They have not paid Trey Hendrickson. They're not giving him the Jerry McGuire money. So what would you do? I mean, would you try and bring in Noah Fant? Would you offer him more money maybe than the other team just because we're in such bad shape with our receiving core?
No, I wouldn't. And I like Noah Fant, but yeah, he's nowhere near the top echelon of the tight ends in the league. Nor should he get anywhere close to that kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I put Noah Fant right in the category where Juwan Johnson resides among the league's tight ends. And I would even go as far to say as I would prefer to have if I'm only allowed to have one, I would prefer to have Juwan Johnson on my team than Noah Fant. You just paid Juwan, and I realize you're thin at tight end, but Juwan's your receiving tight end. That's what Noah Fant would be if you brought him in. He doesn't improve your blocking one bit. That guy's going to be Foster Moreau when he comes back, when he's healthy. So it's not that I wouldn't offer Noah Fant a contract. I would, but it would be a very team-friendly, cap deal. Probably a 1-year prove-it deal like they did to Chase Young last year. Or if he's willing to accept a 2 or 3 year deal with a bunch of incentives built in, that's the kind of contract I would offer Fant. I would not get in a bidding war with anyone for Noah Fant.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the boat of the same thing. I'm like giving him a Justin Blackmon deal, very cap friendly, 1-year prove it deal. I'm bringing him in as another pass catcher. I know he's not going to give me the blocking that I want, but I'm bringing him in to run packages, 11, 12 packages, that I'm going to maybe send 2 tight ends out as pass catchers and just see what I can do just to get other receivers out there, because I don't trust the receiving core past Brandon Cooks, and I don't feel like I've got that contested catch guy.
Right.
So yeah, that's the only concern I have right now with Noah Fant is I'm not getting like you. I'm not getting in the bidding war. I really don't think he's going to get the kind of money he's looking for. I think everyone's going to offer him about the same thing, a 1-year prove it deal. It's going to be the language, What are my incentives? How many catches do I have to have? How much yardage? How many TDs? That kind of stuff. That's what's going to make the difference. It's training camp. The only way you're going to find maybe a receiver is somebody makes a stupid mistake and cuts the guy, or it's going to be too much competition in a position on a team where somebody kind of falls through the cracks. I mean, for a little while, Dwan Jennings, I think his name is, over the 49ers, he seemed to be the rumor that he was going to be the odd man out over there. It would have to be something like that. A guy who no one really expects to be out on the street in the final cut down, the Saints would go and pick up, and we won't see that for another 4 weeks.
Right.
So Justin, we'll talk about the defense too, but I just want to bring up Justin Blackham too. He seems to be making an impact with the team already. It looks like he is going to be a good fit with Reed in the secondary. How do you feel about the secondary right now? Because Asante Samuel Jr. is still unsigned.
Yeah.
And no one is signing him. Eli Apple just got signed yesterday, right. I think. So no one has signed him yet. How do you feel about the corners, and how do you feel about Asante Samuel Jr. that no one has signed him yet?
The fact that nobody is even visiting with Asante Samuel Jr. right now, tells me that maybe he's not recovering like expected, from his neck, from his nerve surgery. But we haven't heard anything. So I'd like to hear somebody break that silence from the Samuel camp. The fact that nobody's even visiting with him, and nobody from the Samuel camp or Samuel himself are saying, "I'm healthy, I'm ready to go." Let the offers rolling in. That concerns me a little bit about that young man's health. And I think that's very telling because a team like the Saints, I think Asante, we all thought Asante Samuel would be a very good fit, if healthy. But having said that, I'm actually pretty encouraged by the cornerback play so far. Kool-Aid McKinstry, is not coming up on the short end of too many plays. And he's your number one corner. Quincy Riley, who, a young man, a kid that, I loved out of Louisville, he's making some plays.
He got an interception of Rattler.
Yeah. And a couple other near picks. And I think, depending on what happens with the Samuel situation, I think that Riley is going to end up being the starter along opposite of McKinstry. Maybe not to open the season, but by maybe as early as midseason, and certainly by the end of the season. That seems to be the way it's projecting for me. That's if they plan on moving Alante Taylor around like most of us think that they're going to. And what you said about Julian Blackman, I'll echo what I said last week when I hopped on to the Bayou Blitz with you guys. I think Blackman is an upgrade over Tyrann Mathieu. Coverage wise, at this stage of their would-be careers, since Matthew's career is over, Tyrann still a master, was a master at reading quarterbacks, reading patterns, jumping routes, in off-ball coverage. So I think he actually would have been a pretty good fit for Brandon Staley's scheme. But by the same token, Mathieu had clearly lost a step and had zero interest in tackling anybody, whether it was in the open field or around the line of scrimmage. And Julian Blackman is sticking his head in there. He's a player that we've heard within the last few days that Brandon Staley has always loved. Staley made a hard push to draft him when he was the defensive coordinator of the Rams, and the Colts beat him to it a couple picks earlier. As far as ball skills and creating turnovers, Blackman has had just as many interceptions as Tyrann Mathieu has over the last 2 or 3 years. So I agree with you. I think he is going to be a nice fit alongside Justin Reed. It does give you another veteran presence in there without bringing in an over-the-hill guy. And I think Justin Reed, and from the sounds of it, Alante Taylor are starting to emerge as the leaders in that secondary, to kind of galvanize them and bringing them together. So I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing from the secondary 1 week in.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it is two-hand touch right now. But if you're a cornerback, if you're a safety in this kind of drills, it's good that you're making plays on balls, that you're showing aggression, you're knocking passes down. I mean, that's the big thing. It's the lines that we're not really getting a good look at because it's not heavy contact.
Right.
Hemisphere. We talked a little bit about it in the beginning of the show, but this training camp does feel a lot better. And I think we're thinking about Dennis Allen directly from a year ago and 2 years ago. So it feels more energetic. It feels a little bit younger, a little bit different. These coaches are different. I'm not saying that Peyton's message got old, because I don't believe that, but I think it got to the point where they weren't mentally ready for a restart. They were used to having the same guys in every year, and they knew the drills. They knew what they were supposed to do and go out there and do it. And what we're seeing, I think, in this camp now is these younger guys are coming in, and they're making an impact right away. And they seem to really start inspiring the veterans to play more. And it gives much more of an energy to the team, because it's like, hey, look, these young guys are out here doing stuff. They're not a bunch of bums that we know, you probably ain't going to make this team, because we got a lot of veterans on it. That you can see these guys fighting for legitimate spots. And speaking of people fighting for a spot, my boy, Danny Stutzman.
He is balling out.
Yes. Even though it's no contact, I am really looking forward to seeing the first preseason games to see this guy run around, because he just has a nose for the football. He really, really does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's why I liked him, going back to the draft process, when I started looking at tape of him, and I'm just going, man, this guy just moves to the ball. He doesn't take too many false steps. He's an old school NFL linebacker. I just want to hit people. Vaughn Johnson was a comparison some people made. I kind of I kind of look at him more like Chris Spielman, from the Lions. He reminds me a lot of Chris Spielman, and I mean that in a good way. Just somebody who just loves football and is going to go out there and hit people. And I felt, especially in the latter half of the Peyton years, 2020, 2021, and especially during the Dennis Allen era, we really didn't have somebody come out there and just lay the lumber and just make a statement, get people fired up. He's going to hit somebody, I want that running back go back to the huddle and say, man, I don't know who 47 is, but don't let me run in his direction ever again. And that's what I've been looking for a long time. How do you feel about Stutzman so far? I mean, I can see you shaking your head and but he did get a pick.
I love it, and it's infectious, and as that style of player usually is. Admittedly, you and I didn't have the spirited debate about Stutzman that we have had about other players in the past, but we did have a slightly differing opinion on him because I was down on his coverage skills, athletically. But what I missed in that was the fact that, and I acknowledge that he was a ball magnet, and just he moves so decisively around the line of scrimmage. You just said he never takes any false steps, and that's the kind of player I saw at Oklahoma too. I didn't stop to think at how much this defense misses a player like that. DeMario is that player, yes. But DeMario is asked to do so many other things in that defense. That when he does, when DeMario Davis does drop back, or does move to the, move laterally to the outside, where's that guy in the trenches that is going to make a play? The Jonathan Vilmas, the DeMarios, the Vaughn Johnsons, the Sam Mills, and I'm not putting Danny Stutzman in that category yet, obviously, but just having that type of player can be infectious to your whole defense. Chase Young said it the other day in an interview, not about Stutzman specifically, but when asked about the team's run defense, he kind of chuckled and he said, he said the one thing that we're going to be expected to do is stop the run above all else. Well, that's why Danny Stutzman's there. And I'm like you. I expect to see Stutzman get a lot of reps through the preseason, and I'm excited to see it. DeMario usually doesn't play a whole lot, nor does he need to. I think even in a new system, I think it's all right. So I say let Stutzman have not only the starters reps, but the ones and twos. Let him play through three quarters. Let him get as many reps as possible to get that feel for the NFL game. Because he looks like a 4th round draft steal to me right now. And again, 1 weekend. But I mean, just the infectious style, and manner that he helps bring to this defense right now. Is just something that you love to see. It's something that it's infectious through other players. And it's like you said, it's something that this defense, that the Dennis Allen and latter Sean Payton defenses were really missing outside of Davis.
Yeah. And I mean that in terms of like, okay, once Malcolm Brown was gone and once I can't think of his name right now, former 1st round pick. The other
Rankins?
Tackle, Sheldon Rankins. Once Sheldon Rankins was gone, I felt like the team was missing people who just really shut down the run, where you just gave up trying to run up the middle. And last year, especially, I saw too many runs up the middle, and not just, when the Eagles did it. I could, you're dealing with the arguably one of the best backs in the league, with Barkley. But when I was seeing, 2nd and 3rd ranked defense running deep offenses, running the ball seemingly at will.
Tampa Bay's joke of a backfield had almost 300 yards rushing.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. That makes me angrier than giving up big pass plays because I loved, it was a streak. And for some people, it was kind of a joke because they're like, they didn't give up a single 100-yard rusher, but they gave up over, 200 yards rushing. It was just a committee approach. I get that. But at the same time, I don't like seeing teams run the football on us at all. I want teams to give up on the run and feel like they got to throw the ball to beat us. And that's when the pass rush comes out. That's when you start seeing interceptions. That's what you want to see because you make that offense one-dimensional. So the defense can now focus on, okay, they're going to throw the ball. We'll be in coverage, and we're going to come out here and pin our ears back, come after your quarterback. But when a team can run the ball when it wants to, you just feel like the whole time, God, can we just hold them to a field goal?
Yeah.
I mean, can we just get off the field on third down? Second and short is killing me, So, and I think that was the approach of the draft. I think the approach they had this draft was, we're going to get guys who stop the run. And they got players at all three levels.
Mm-hmm.
There's some guys, and we'll talk about this next week as we preview the first preseason game. But there are some guys that we should watch these next couple of practices and leading into that preseason game, because I think it's padded practice tomorrow. And my son's going to be out there, Jerry. I saw you were going to be at training camp Wednesday. I'm 99% sure my son's that's his last one he's got tickets to. So he's going to be at that training camp practice. I think there's padded practices on Thursday and on Saturday, too. I have to go back and look at the schedule. And then they get ready to prepare for the Chargers game.
Mm-hmm.
Then after the Chargers game, they stay a week out in California, out at UC Irvine, the same place they did training camp last year. And I tell you what, the first couple of days, it wasn't too bad. But, man, yesterday and today, that's probably why he canceled practice. We've had heat advisories, temperatures over 100 degrees, feels like temperatures, lots of humidity. And they were supposed to have practice at 2 o'clock, which is insane.
Oh, yeah.
Padded practice at 2 o'clock, no thank you. I'd rather padded practice at 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, leading up to 11, because it's miserable. I was outside yesterday evening at 6 o'clock, 6:30, something like that. And I'm sweating, just standing there talking to my neighbor. I'm sweating. So, yeah, it's just horrible, horrible. I don't know how you get much work done in that heat. I really don't. But that's them, not me. I'm 57 years old. I'm too old to be out there in practice. Defensive line. Have you heard much from the defensive line? I mean, I know before the show we talked about Chase Young and Carl Granderson. But the defensive tackles, the only ones I'm hearing anything good about is Brian Brzee, who seems to be thriving in this scheme, and we were kind of worried about that. Mm-hmm. But the other guys, Godshaw, Shepard, Saunders, the Brockton, the rookie, I haven't heard much of anything about any of these guys.
No, I haven't either. A little bit from Godshaw, about how comfortable he feels in the system, and loves the way the training camps are being conducted and things like that, but not so much as far as making plays on the field. And again,
I had Jared Mayo's training camp last year, so
you're right.
Right, we better than that.
I don't know that I'm going to put a whole lot of concern. I mean, this is a position that you and I were massively concerned about coming into the draft. And even though they drafted Vernon Brockton, didn't ease our concerns a whole lot.
No.
So it's still a position that's going to concern me really until it doesn't. But I can't say I'm more concerned because, again, the lack of physicality in NFL practices now, you don't know what you have on either line until you get into game situations. So it is going to be a position that I'm going to continue to watch very closely. The interior line. I know we're going to talk about specifically edge rushers in a minute, but I mean, those guys that you mentioned, Shepard, Saunders, Brockton, Godshaw, they need to step up because if they don't, it doesn't matter if you have a Demario Davis or a potential breakout star in Danny Stutzman at the second levels, because those blockers are going to get to them unencumbered and just take them right out of a play. So at the very least, those interior defensive linemen have to hold up at the point, stalemate at the point of attack. They may not get penetration. I don't expect a lot of big sack numbers from them. Outside of Brissy, and it looks like he is going to thrive in this system. But you got to have those guys tie up blockers and clog those running lanes. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what you have at linebacker or defensive back.
Yeah, and we got a lot of bodies out there, but not a lot of names. And it does hurt that you only have one padded practice, because you don't get to see these guys go one-on-one and see if they can tie up the blockers and who will be your nose tackle in these situations. So I think the preseason games, I think the week in California, they're going to do a lot of padded practices. I don't remember how many they're allowed to have, but I think there'll be much more physical practices, and that might be what he's holding off some of these padded practices to work in the cooler temperatures rather than work indoors, work in the cooler temperatures outside. Let's see. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the edge rushers then, because we have some invisible men out there. Vosky, still a no-show. I mean, I've not heard his name. I've not seen him do anything yet.
Diggs is making a couple plays.
Yeah.
And people are talking about Chase Young is having a big camp. It's two-hand touch, guys. The criticism I've had of Chase Young really throughout his entire career, certainly last year with the Saints, was that he's not a finisher. Well, they're playing two-hand touch right now, or 7-on-7s. So he's not asked to finish now. He floors a quarterback now. He might be looking for a job. Not looking for a job, but he'll be traded to a new team. Don't tell me that Chase Young looks like that switch is finally turned on, because he has yet to show that he's a finisher, and he's not going to be doing it in two-hand touch. It's great that he's quote unquote holding his own, with Kelvin Banks or Talise Fuaga, and winning 50% of those matchups. Well, I got news for you. When there isn't any contact, the stand-up edge rusher better be winning about 80% of those matchups, and he's not. So I like hearing the fact that that he has some pop in his step. I like hearing that Diggs is making plays, because I really like this young man's college film. But don't tell me that the edge rusher position looks better, because there's zero evidence of that so far.
Well, and that kind of takes me over to the quarterbacks too, because as everyone's been looking at the quarterback battle, and Spencer Rattler looks like somebody who's actually played in the league for a year. Jake Haener looks like somebody who's been around in the NFL or an NFL training camp before, whereas Tyler Shuck looks like a rookie, and a very cautious rookie. Who is thinking more than reacting and trying not to make the mistake. When you're playing two-hand touch football in shorts and shells, for me, it's hard to grade the quarterbacks because they've got a no-contact jersey on. There's no real pass rush coming. I mean, they could touch you on the shoulder, but like you just said about the pass rushers, they're winning about 50% of the time because they know they're really not getting to the quarter. They don't have to get to the quarterback. They're trying not to be overly physical to get in trouble, that kind of thing. They're just kind of doing nothing but speed rushes or spins. They're not really bull rushing or getting under the pads, trying to beat the defender, or pulling a lot of tricks out. And even if they do, they can't hit the quarterback. So
yeah, and the tackles can't be physical with them. So
yeah. So it's hard for me to grade the quarterbacks too, because they're like, oh, okay, Spencer Rattler hit Rashid Shaheed on a deep pass. Okay, he did that. No pass rush in his face, But I do want to ask you about this. Tyler Shuck is on the 7-on-7 drills. There's no rush, no blocking at all. Now, he's not playing out there with Shaheed and Olave. He is playing, we talked about the weakness of those receivers. So the receivers aren't getting separation, and Shuck is just taking off running. And he's getting some heat from Bobby Hebert over here in Local Sports Talk, Jeff Nowak, who worked for WWL Radio and was on Twitter talking about this. That Shuck needs to get the ball out and at least get the ball in the area of the receiver on 7-on-7 and make it look like, well, that would have been a good pass, but the receiver dropped it or he couldn't get separation, but it looks like he's just afraid to pull the trigger. How do you read this? How would you take this?
I agree with I agree with those guys giving him heat. Because the way I take it is just like you said, a kid that is either afraid to make a mistake or is just frankly thinking too much right now. Probably a combination of both. But guess what, folks? That's what happens to a rookie, especially at a very cerebral position like quarterback when you're 1 week into training camp. But I agree with the criticisms. If you're in a game and you're in a 3rd and 7 and your receivers don't get separation, you can pick up the first down with your legs. And by all means, pick up that first down, keep the chains moving, live to fight another down. But you're in training camp. Now is when you show whether you have accuracy into these tight windows, because you're going to have accuracy into these tight windows to have any kind of career. Put it on your receiver to make the play in a contested catch situation. We don't need to know that you can run for a first down. We know you're good athletes. We've seen it on tape. We've seen the bootlegs. We've seen your 40 time. We've seen all that. What we want to see is you making being able and or willing to make the difficult throws, especially in difficult situations. So I think it's great that Jeff and Bobby are criticizing Tyler. The ones that really need to be criticizing Tyler are Nussmeier, Kellen Moore, and
Scott
even his Scott Tolzien, and even his receivers. Hey Tyler, throw that. Let me make the play. You got to throw that. Let his offensive lineman get in his head, especially the veterans. McCoy, Ruiz have been around the longest. Tyler, you got to throw that. We'll give you the blocking, because you got to have confidence in that too. Not just your receivers, as you know, Alan, and as you've said, but you got to have confidence if you're the quarterback that your protection is going to hold up for that extra second, so for you to be able to step into your throw fully and get a full arm release. So the guys that he's in that huddle with need to get in his ear and need to get in his face a little bit too, because again, like I said, if it's 3rd and 7 in a game situation and you need to pick up the play with your leg, first down with your leg, do it. You'll never hear a criticism from me at that point. But right now, these are the kind of things that you work on, that you need to know, that gives you opportunities to improve on, or even gives your coaches the idea, okay, we need to improve on this. You don't even know if you need to improve on it because you're not doing it at all. It is kind of the point I'm making.
I know, Anna. Bobby. Bobby would just throw it, and he even said that.
He did.
But yeah, it's my thing. My thing is, I did a Top Gun analogy. I said Shuck is trying to be Iceman too much when he needs a little Maverick in him.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He needs to trust his gut more. If he thinks he can make a play with the ball, he needs to throw it. And if you throw an interception, you throw an interception. And I know Parcells' rules. Parcells' rules are throw it away, live to play another down, don't throw interceptions, don't take sacks. But he shouldn't be scrambling. He should pretty much have in his head, these are my progressions. I'm going to the X, I'm going to the Y, I'm going to the, whoever it is out there. So I make one look this way, one look that way, and I'm going to try and throw a guy open. And that was the last thing I said. When Peyton was a rookie, Peyton Manning was a rookie, he famously told his dad, Archie, Dad, no one is open. And it's true. College football, people are wide open. Those zones are huge, and there's huge holes in them. So guys just drop right in. And the field's wider, too, because if you can throw the ball across the length of the field, because the hash marks are further out, you're going to find more holes in the defense. And the guys just aren't fast enough to close on the ball. So, if you can find the holes, you can find a great spot to sit in, you're going to get guys wide open. The NFL is just not like that. They're too fast. You're going against corners who can run 4.3s too. And they're physical. And they put their hands on your receivers, and they disrupt timing routes. And you take you're supposed to do a 5-step drop, and you did 3 steps and a hop. So the play's not ready yet. The receiver's not open yet. So I get all that. There's all that going on through your head. But at some point, you just have to make that decision. I'm going to throw the ball, and I'm putting the ball where I think the receiver's the only one who can get it. And if it's a low ball in the dirt, so be it. But yeah, it's you've got to speed up that internal clock, and you're exactly right, Hemisphere. He needs to increase, get that clock going. So you now are a second earlier when you go to make the decision to release it.
The internal clock, obviously, as you mentioned, and reasons why are vital. But you also got to give Kellen Moore, Scott Tolzien, Nussmeier, you got to give them things to coach. If you're not throwing it at all, then your coaches can't sit down with you, and analyze. Okay, this, you need to hold on to the ball a second longer. You needed to, instead of the 3 steps and a hop, if it calls for 5, you need to take 5 steps. Your ball placement on this play needs to be here instead of there. But he's not doing that at all, so he's not even giving them any coachable opportunities.
Yeah, and like I said, I think he's too afraid to make a mistake. So he is trying to be perfect on everything, and it's just taking time.
And I get all that, perfectly normal for a rookie one weekend.
Absolutely. You're your first weekend on training camp, or your first training camp. It's going to be a process, and some people are like, well, this means I should start Rattler now because I just don't think he's going to get any better. Well, you can't make that decision. You really can't. Plus, I got a quote in my head from John McKay, when he was coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is not a quip, but it is a statement I thought was pretty accurate. John McKay said, listen, if you're the quarterback that I want for the future and you're not on the field, you're on the bench, you don't learn anything from the bench. You learn how to drink water from the bench. You learn how to walk around on a bench, but you're not out there playing. You're not learning anything about football on the bench. And I've asked people this who say we should start Rattler for X amount of games, and then if he's struggling, you put in Shuck, or you have some sort of clock that, week 6, week 8, whatever the time is, when you think that the Saints have lost enough games that the season's not salvageable, then you put the other guy in. My thing is, listen, if Shuck is your future, you start him from the beginning, because this team is not built to, what are you trying to accomplish? It's not built to win a division. It's not built to go to the playoffs. It's not, you're not a championship team. You're not a quarterback away from being a championship team. You are a young team. You want to see the young guys out there. We've just talked about a whole bunch of them tonight. You want to see those guys out there playing. Put your quarterback out there too. If you think he is the guy that you're going to go with, you put him out there. Now, if you put him out there and he's struggling, then maybe you can go back to Rattler, or maybe you can maybe you get a veteran to put out there if you feel like, Rattler's not much of an upgrade. He's basically a more experienced Shuck right now. Or Hainer, you just don't feel like Hainer's going to be that guy at all. And I want to bring up that too, because we haven't talked about that part either. But, you have to look at this season as as 17 preseason games almost. And if you start winning and you start playing well and people are growing with you, then maybe you can think about, okay, now these wins matter. We're stacking wins and we can do something. But right now, my thing is this evaluation is going to go into the first 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the padded practices. You don't have enough time. So, and that's why I want to bring up Jake Haener. Some fans are pissed off that he is getting any reps at all, because he's the rotation has been Rattler, Shuck, Haener, and then they went back Rattler, Shuck, and then Haener. And people are like, why are you wasting time giving Haener any snaps at all? It should be Rattler and Shuck each time doing the ones. How do you feel about this?
I think it's ridiculous. And literally everyone that is saying that has an agenda, whether it's a Shuck agenda, whether it's a Rattler agenda, whether it's a suck for Arch agenda, whatever it is, it's an agenda that doesn't include Jake Haener. Well, folks, I got news for you. Jake Haener's still on the roster. So why wouldn't you give him a chance, an opportunity, to see what he has? Because by your logic, Brock Purdy would be nowhere near an NFL roster because Brock Purdy was a 7th round pick, and you already had Garoppolo, and you drafted Trey Lance so high. So why should Brock Purdy get any reps? New England, Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. You already had an All-Pro and Drew Bledsoe. Why give Tom Brady any reps? Guys, make it make sense. If you're not positive who your quarterback is going to be going into camp, then anyone with a quarterback position should have an opportunity to get reps, and maybe you have a find. Do Alan and I think that Jake Haener is the guy? No, I think we both made it clear that we do not. But we're not the one calling the shots for the New Orleans Saints. And believe me, I would love to be sitting here next year at this time talking about how wrong I was because Jake Haener had an all-pro year in 2025 and nobody was giving him a chance. I would love to say that. And I do expect that the reps are going to kind of separate themselves after that Chargers game in particular, once you get a preseason game under your belt. Because you're no longer talking about a couple padded practices, and outside of that, nothing but 7-on-7s and 2-hand touch. You're talking about literal game situations where you can evaluate Rattler, you can evaluate Haener, you can evaluate Shuck. And at that point, we're probably going to see a fairly even split of the reps, first team reps, ladies and gentlemen, until that Chargers preseason game on the 10th. And I say, bring it on. Would I personally? Would I like Shuck, Rattler, or even would I like one of these guys to just come out and ball out right from the start and establish something? Yeah, that'd be great. I'm sure Kellen Moore is saying the same thing. But the reality is, you don't have a legitimate I can't say legitimate. You don't have a bona fide starter that you know of yet. So until you do, everybody gets a chance to prove themselves, folks.
Well, it's funny because we've got fans talking out, Rattler deserves a chance because what he was playing with last year was the JV team and third stringers and guys who don't belong in football. And I get that, but at the same time, so was Jake Haener. For that first half against Washington, a team that ended up going to the NFC Championship game. Now, granted, we probably should have beat Washington. In fact, we should have beat Washington. Rattler came in and rallied the team back, so that kind of feeds the anti-Haener stuff because Haener was playing very badly. But at the same time, is it fair to Haener that he gets labeled or gets stuck with the bad coaching that Dennis Allen's team did for him, but Rattler gets a pass for that?
Right.
Because he was able to overcome the bad coaching somehow to lead the team to a touchdown, at least in every game he started. Got shut out once. It's. I get you saw flashes of talent and you heard all the media people talking about how he's got it and there were all these other things they were saying about him. But I mean, I watched, that Chargers game, that Broncos game, that Packers game. I mean, those were painful games to sit there and look at, not just because they didn't have these guys, these receivers or the running game wasn't there, but I mean, just to watch the way the quarterback position was played was very painful to watch, just as painful as watching that. That's how he got a start because he was so bad that they said, well, let's try Haener. And Haener looked bad too against Washington. So, I mean, it's tough for me to sit there and say, yeah, Rattler deserves all these opportunities, but Haener doesn't. But like you, I feel the same way. There's no future with Haener. Haener is not going to be an NFL quarterback. But if Rattler's owed the opportunity, so is Haener. Let Haener fail. The team it's not hurting the reps to take away from Haener, take away from Rattler and Shuck to give Haener an opportunity. At this point of training camp, after the Chargers game, maybe he does slide over to the twos all the time, and it'll be Shuck and Rattler. But at this point of camp, where it's just 7-on-7 drills for the most part, I'm willing to give him opportunities. All right, last position before we get out of here, running back, because we got to talk about Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller had a play yesterday that the New Orleans Saints ran in Steve Austin $6 Million Man slow motion, where you saw it, which you and I have talked about this before. We saw the talent. You see these glimpses of talent. I mean, it's the ultimate tease. If for those of you who were too young to remember Chuck Muncie, Chuck Muncie is the closest I can come to as a comparison to what you can see from Miller when Miller does go out there and make a play, okay, especially in practice. You get this glimmer, like, holy shit, this guy's really good. In Muncie's case, but then the cocaine wore off and you'd have these issues. And Muncie would do this for more than a play. Miller, it seems to be, you get these glimpses in a game, maybe a half, maybe a series, where you see this guy just blow through that hole, run past people, catch a pass, and just take off running at full speed. Nobody can catch him, and then he pulls a hamstring and he's out for 8 weeks. But it's a tease again, because I look at this like going, I want to buy into this, and then I'm just like, but don't. It's it's like my dating life. There was a girl I really was attracted to. We used to call her Catwoman because she was like a cat. You know, when she came by looking for attention, you couldn't wait to give her attention. But then it was like, don't date her, because she's just going to leave you, and you get pissed off. I hate women, all this other stuff. You know, it's that teasing feeling. You're like, God dang, what happened? How come I can't close the deal? What will it take to get Miller to close the deal? What would it take for us to finally feel like, okay, the pick is justified. We've got a running back now.
He's got to stay healthy for at least 13 or 14 games. Stay healthy and productive in those games. I love Kendre Miller's talent. I have since TCU. I loved the pick when they made it. I have sang his praises since, saying if he could just stay healthy. They have a devastating 1-2 punch with him and Kamara. So I'm not going to fall for it. I mean, if he has a great week 1, against Arizona, I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to wait to see if he has another great week 2. Every single week, I'm going to be waiting for Kendre Miller to be Kendre Miller again. Which I don't mean that in a good way. So that's what it'll take for me to be a believer, is talk to me in mid-December. And if he's strung 12, 13, 14 games together, where he's productive, even as a number 2 or a complimentary back, that's the only way, if he stays on the field, because I have never, ever doubted his talent, potential, or upside. I have openly doubted his ability to stay healthy and his desire to stay on the football field. So the only way to squash those doubts for me is for him to put together basically a whole season. And when I say a whole season, I don't mean 16, 17. That's not realistic. But that's why I said, give me 12, 13, 14 games. I'll be a happy guy.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not have a quarter or a series and then you pull your hamstring out for 8 weeks. That's what we need to stop seeing. And hopefully this recovery techniques they're doing with stretching and things like that will help keep him healthy. How do you feel about the guys that are behind him now, like Edwards, Clyde Hilaire, Cam Akers, and Devin Neal? I mean, we're not hearing their names very much at all.
And that concerns me.
Yeah, I think Clyde Hilaire had a little nice catch on a screen pass, and he's had a couple things, but I'm not hearing Cam Akers at all. And same with Devin Neal. I mean, granted, he's a 6th-round pick, but you know, we were kind of hoping he would be a good inside runner for this team. This is what puts all the pressure on Miller again, because you and I feel like it's just not there. So give me your impressions of those guys, those 3 guys.
It's a little bit concerning, just as it was with me, when we talked receivers about Bub Means and Donovan Peoples-Jones being invisible men so far. Cam Akers, while I liked the signing and I certainly understood it, I'll be frank with you, and I didn't say this at the time, but I thought it. He looked overweight to me. And he doesn't look. He didn't, at least in the minicamp tryout. He didn't look like he had a lot of pop in his legs. And for a guy, Cam Akers, for a guy who's struggled with injuries the last couple of years, and as a result, saw a drastic drop in his production. That's a concern. Clyde Edwards-Hilaire, I feel like the ceiling for Clyde Edwards-Hilaire has always been limited. He's a limited back. He'll give you, and I forget what back you always said this about. But Clyde Edwards-Hilaire is the kind of guy who, if you need 4 yards, he'll get you 4 yards. If you need 8 yards, he'll get you 4 yards. He's okay. He's a roster filler. He's a guy that you could feel pretty confident as a competent starter for a couple games here and there. But if you need to lean on him, even as a number 2 back, then you're in a little bit of trouble. And Devin Neal, again, it's not nearly as complex or intricate as the quarterback position or linebacker position on defense. But Devin Neal, you're talking about the first week of training camp for a rookie. So I'm not I don't have a red flag about him yet as much as I do Akers and Edwards-Helaire. The guy who's been turning my head on a couple plays has been Marcus Yarns, the rookie, undrafted rookie from Delaware, who I wrote about when I was still with Athlon, and I think a piece or two when I moved over to Saints Wire too. I think Yarns has a legitimate shot to make this team. But if he does, he's not the inside runner Kendre Miller could be, Devin Neal could be, Cam Akers has been. So you'd still be talking about the same kind. Yarns potentially electric back, good receiving back, good boundary threat. But if he's your number 2 back, then that means you got to still run Alvin Kamara between the tackles. So like you said, right now it's still circling all back to Kendre Miller. And my God, can he stay healthy? Can he stay healthy? I'm looking forward to seeing Devin Neal, in the next couple weeks. Now that he's got his feet wet, just like we all are with all of these rookies, to see if that switch maybe starts to come on and he starts to feel comfortable a little bit. But Akers, Edwards-Helaire, I have concerns about both those two guys.
Yeah, Hemisphere. We talking about a little bit about Foskey. I haven't heard Ford's name yet either. No. That's going to be next week when we preview the Chargers game. I think those are the kind of guys we got to see where they show up in the rotation. Do they come in the second quarter? They come in the third quarter? You come in the fourth quarter of the first preseason game. That's not good. Nope. That's really not good. So we'll have to see where these guys come out. That's my big concern. I think Neal had a nice blitz pickup in the padded practices, as a blocker. So that was a positive thing to see out of him. Edwards-Helaire has got his niche. If he's going to make this team, he's going to be a third down back, honestly. Yep. And he's got to show he's a good, consistent pass catcher that he can. And I know that's really kind of a dying position, just like the fullback is a dying position in the NFL because you've got so many guys now who they're all 3 downs. That it's about getting guys in space and things like that. But you got to be able to pick up the blitz, and you got to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield to really make this roster based on the kind of running backs they have. And I feel the same way about you about Akers. I kind of think his legs are gone, and he's probably not going to make this team as of the way he's playing right now. So Miller again, God, man, I hate putting my eggs in that basket because he's not reliable. Nope. So, and unfortunately, I feel like this team has got to be a running team first. So that puts even more pressure on that. I feel more worried about the running back position behind Alvin Kamara than I do the quarterback, honestly. Yeah. Because a good, solid running game, and it looks like the offensive line is going to gel, but a good, solid running game takes so much pressure off the quarterback and makes his passes so much easier. That to me, that's the most critical position on the team, and that's why I saved that position for last. Bayou Blitz, y'all have that show coming up tomorrow night or Thursday night?
Nope, we plan on tomorrow. I am waiting for a text back from Pierre Thomas because, like you, I'm very intrigued about the running back position right now, and many of us know Pierre's story. Coming in as an undrafted free agent, and making, I'm not going to say an instantaneous impact, but certainly surprising everybody by earning a job in the first place, and then eventually being a Saints Hall of Famer. So I'm hoping to get Pierre, if not this week, then soon, to talk about his training camp experiences, how that parallels to the Saints backs now that we're looking at. Just his overall thoughts on the Saints offense and what he expects. If he expects the same kind of balance that you and I have been talking about. But whether we have Pierre, the great PT or not, Brendan and I are still going to be going at 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. if you're on the East Coast tomorrow night.
Yeah, I've been watching the old 2011 team, and my God. It's just, but Pierre was special. The thing about the 2011 team and Pierre Thomas, and you can even, if he's on the show, bring it up to him. It just amazed me how he could take a screen pass that's about a 2-yard pass, and it is 3rd and 15, and he could wiggle and slide and move and then fall forward for 16 yards on 3rd and 15, and do that consistently. There was, I watched, I'm not kidding, I watched about 6 games from 2011 that are on YouTube, and I have never seen him get tackled for a loss on a screen pass. Never. And I just shake my head in amazement at, because down and distance meant nothing to that team. Now, I didn't watch the Rams game, so yeah, we're going to throw that one out. But I mean, yeah, it just amazes me. Down and distance meant nothing to the 2011 Saints. And it's an amazing feat. So Pierre will always be one of my favorites because of that. And I was so happy that, and I was just talking about this hemisphere. I was so happy that Pierre Thomas got the first touchdown for the Saints offense in the Super Bowl and on a screen pass, because I mean, that's your signature play. That is your play. We just rename it the Pierre Thomas play, because as soon as he caught that screen pass, he was gone, and he was going to get whatever yardage he needed. And he called himself an ugly runner. There was nothing ugly about his running. It was beautiful.
No. I mean, we talk about the kind of elite balance that Alvin Kamara had. Go watch, and I'm telling you folks, Alan already knows this. Go watch Pierre Thomas highlights. Pierre Thomas had elite balance. We know what kind of receiver Alvin Kamara is, but I'll take Pierre Thomas on a screen pass over him any day of the week. I'll take Pierre Thomas over the great Darren Sproles. I'm not the Darren Sproles fan. Many of you folks are, mainly because he was a fantasy football team nightmare for me. There were too many. There were too many times where Darren Sproles handed me a 5 reception for 8 yards kind of game. If Pierre got 5 receptions, 4 of them were first downs and 1 of them was a touchdown. Almost guaranteed. Underrated, tough inside runner. Basically, and the 2009 season is a perfect example. The Saints don't go to the Super Bowl without Pierre. Don't even go to the Super Bowl without Pierre Thomas. Saints don't get past the Minnesota Vikings without Pierre Thomas. He was that kind of special. The quintessential underrated performer, the kind of player every coach wants on every team in every sport. And I had the opportunity to meet him. He was on the cruise, that we went on last spring. He and his mom. He's such a special guy too. As special as he was as a player, I am happy to report he didn't disappoint as a person either. Really great to talk to. So I'm hoping he can join us, if not tomorrow, then soon.
Well, and last thing, and I'm gonna let you go. The last comment I'm gonna make about this is that, that Minnesota game, not only did Pierre make the key 4th and 1 carry, but remember, Courtney Roby got hurt on the kick return prior to overtime. So Pierre Thomas had to go back to doing what he hadn't done since 2007 and return a kick. And he took that kick almost to midfield. So he set up that play to kick us to get into the Super Bowl basically on 2 plays. The 4th and 1 conversion, that kick return. So, I mean,
and that's exactly what I meant when I said they don't get past Minnesota if it's not for Pierre Thomas. That, and didn't he have a touchdown earlier in the day?
He did.
I thought so.
Yeah, he did. He got it on a screen pass.
Of course.
I think he got the first one. I think he got the first touchdown. And we bring up the 49ers game. Pierre Thomas doesn't get hurt in that game. They probably don't lose the 49ers because he's going to score. And I still think that was a dirty hit. They should have ejected Dante Whitner.
It was helmet to helmet in today's game.
Yep, absolutely. And, the other game Pierre Thomas missed was because he got injured the week before was the Beastquake game, the Seahawks playoff game, because the Saints played all their starters in that final game, trying to win so they wouldn't have to go to Seattle. And they ended up losing that game. Pierre Thomas got hurt. Reggie Bush gets hurt. You know, and we know the rest. I mean, Julian Jones is starting that game as a running back. So anyway, I'd rather not talk about that game. But yeah, Pierre Thomas was a special, special player. Well, thank you guys for sticking with us. I kept Bob 15 minutes longer than I planned because we got into the conversation about Pierre Thomas, and it was well worth it.
Yes.
Check out the Bayou Blitz tomorrow night. See if Pierre is on. If Pierre is on, please bombard them with questions.
Yes.
Make him talk. In the meantime, football Thursday night, or I should put that in quotation marks, football, because it's the Hall of Fame game Thursday night. You mentioned the 49ers quarterback, what the hell was his name? The guy they just drafted 3 years ago that Brock Purdy beat out. Trey Lance.
Trey Lance, yeah.
Trey Lance will be starting for the Chargers. People didn't even know Trey Lance was on the Chargers or even in the league. So
I didn't.
That's why it's football, because if you got to watch a game that Trey Lance starts, it's not going to be a good game.
Yeah.
But Saints play 2 weeks from today, Saturday or Sunday. I think they play all the games Sunday this year. 2 weeks from Sunday. So we will talk about that game next week. The rest of what they did in training camp, the rest of the week, and whatever other news comes up over that time, because this is the time you're going to see football news every week.
Yep.
So thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.